Well, hello there, minders. Welcome back to the Mind of Watercolor. What we're going to do today actually are some gouache thumbnails. And I'll talk about that more in a minute, but I wanted to talk about water and water bowls for a second. When it comes to using water for watercolor, it's really kind of a no-brainer. There's not much to think about, really. You want a lot of it, usually, if you are in a studio. I've used everything from this to this, this. I've even cut the bottom off of like large water bottles or large milk bottles. Many of you are aware of this because many of you over the years have asked about it. This is my standard, has been my standard studio water container, and I've loved it. This has just been great. It's in my Amazon store. It's a nice 3-well container, and the idea with watercolor is you want at least 2 containers, one with clear water and one with washout water. You can see in the bottom, it's got the ridges at the bottom to help clean it out better. And then this well I always use for the clean water, to grab clean water. And it's got a tray where you can lay your brushes to dry, and laying brushes to dry flat is usually the best way. I think most people who do watercolor know all that. However, just occasionally, we want to sort of treat ourselves to something special. Maybe not necessary, but something really cool and really special. You know from things I've featured in the past that I love to support individual artisans when they come up with something really nice, and I have just such an item right now. These are handmade watercolor bowls, and these are made by Eileen Goldenberg. I will link to her website. She sells them on her website. These are hand-thrown bowls. As you know, if you've watched this channel for long, I get lots of requests to show things. Most of them I turn down. Occasionally, something really stands out to me. This was just such an item. Let's take a closer look. It's got 2 finishes. Pretty much everything you want in a watercolor bowl. It has a shaped out lip there, so you could actually pour it pretty easily. It's got the brush rests. 3, by the way, is usually enough. I rarely ever use more than 3 on the other one. She has actually carved feet into the grooves. She says that's for better seating in the dishwasher, but also when your brush is drying and maybe your bowl is drying. So she's really thought of everything, including the ridges. It's got some very noticeable raised ridges in the bottom, and I really like those for rubbing my brush again to get the pigment out. So I hope you'll take a look at those if you just want something really special for your art table that's out of the ordinary and just want to splurge a little bit on something. This is a great gift for a watercolorist. And Eileen ships a free Sumi calligraphy brush with every bowl. So, again, a beautiful item for your table. Just adds that extra little flair and feeling of pride when you're working on your watercolors, but also a great gift for somebody. Check it out. Now, she also puts together journals, and I was amazed by these as well. She's gone the extra mile in making these very special. This is a very thick, heavy felt. Okay, really interesting design. Adds a charm to the enclosure. Now the unique thing about this is it's refillable with watercolor paper. You could put Arch or she ships them with Fabriano Artistico. And they don't need to stay in here as a journal. This is really like a folio. So these sheets actually come out. And you have 2 sides, one over there and one over here. So you can do a nice landscape piece, actually pull it out and paint right across the gutter. So 100% cotton Fabriano Artistico. She calls them her fearless felt watercolor journals. And again, Eileen Goldenberg, and I will have this is her website. I will have the link down in the description. When she first asked if she could send me these, and I thought the bowls were pretty cool. Wasn't sure the journals would be anything extra special, but they are. The craftsmanship on these was just really impeccable. In fact, she sent me 2. So I want to do a kind of an opening right here on camera for the other one. I don't know what's in this one. Cool, nice gray one. Oh, this is bigger. This is bigger than this one. So she's got the different sizes. Her business card. It's just great to see products done by people, done right. I mean, just really done well. And that's what this is. Oh, wow. Look at this. Fabriano Artistico. Same paper that's used in the Perfect Sketchbook. If you're familiar with my reviews on those. More and more and more, we don't have any reason for taking anything out in the field other than maybe costs. We're taking anything out in the field than 100% cotton sketchbooks. I know I've decided a while ago to start doing that, especially for transparent watercolor. Cool little hot air balloon charm on this one. These are great. So I hope if you're looking for something special for your own desk or for a watercolorist gift, go to Eileen's site and check these out. I don't make anything off of this. She sent these to me to show, and I was more than happy to do it because they're just really very, very nice. So I'm going to work on some thumbnails today. We're going to do it in watercolor and gouache. We're going to talk about the advantages of doing thumbnails in gouache, actually. But I'm actually going to use these bowls today. And I think these are going to become my day-to-day studio art table water bowls. Yay! Well, as I mentioned, I think I'm going to do some thumbnails today. Some gouache thumbnails. Primarily watercolor and gouache, which I don't think I've done on this channel before. This is my Kilimanjaro sketchbook. It's a really nice 100% cotton sketchbook, and I actually have a couple different Kilimanjaro ones. This one I've already started doing some thumbnails in, among other work, so I thought maybe I would just make this sort of a thumbnail book. And I've got that taped off. It's making 4 little areas of about business card size. So we're just going to get started pre-wetting this palette. This is my Schmincke and M-Gram palette. M-Gram gouache on the left, Schmincke watercolor on the right. The main purpose here in doing these thumbnails is some light effects, but planning out for a bigger painting. This is just some inspiration that I'm looking at for different light effects. I've kind of been obsessed lately with light streaming through trees in the forest. And I kind of want to do that effect. Now, I've had several of you ask, how would you do that in transparent watercolor if you didn't use gouache? Well, you have to do some planning. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. So here's the process. And I'm just going to start with these darks. Very dark. That's a phthalo blue primarily, and I'm adding some red and a little bit of phthalo green. Actually, I think that's Prussian blue, sorry. The point is that I get a really, really dark color, and I'm approaching the composition almost in a no-tan form. No-tan is just a way of designing a composition in bold. Typically it's black and white or black and gray. And that's kind of what I'm doing. A very bold, dark black, almost black shapes. And then leaving the light areas. And then what you do is you go back in and you add in some middle light and middle dark values. But getting those dark and light passages first in a composition and a design. It's a very specific way kind of composing a scene. But it works great for thumbnails, I think. Thumbnails should be done quickly. You shouldn't spend a lot of time on them. And now I'm just filling in the lighter colors where the light effects would happen. And the reason I'm using gouache in the first place for this is because you don't really know exactly where all the highlights are going to go, how you're going to adjust them. That's what makes it so difficult for transparent watercolor. But with gouache, you can adjust that on the fly. Now, I am doing as much as I can transparently, but I've got the gouache so that I can model that light. I can filigree those edges with highlights, and I don't have to worry about things like painting around the highlights or leaving the highlights or masking or anything. You can basically just go in there with opaque paint. and work the lighting effects and the value scheme until I get it the way I want it. And I'm making it rough. I'm not spending a lot of time, but I'm focusing mainly on composition and the very lightest values and the very darkest values. I have a light source I'm imagining coming from the right and sort of streaming down through the trees, down these little embankments. And that's the nearly finished thumbnail there. That would make a nice blueprint for a transparent watercolor piece, or mostly transparent watercolor piece. So we're going to move on to a second thumbnail. Again, just more of this dark ultramarine, some Prussian blue, some phthalo green, even a little black, and a little bit of red, deep red, just to get some dark colors. Same approach, almost a no tan approach. If you don't know what no tan means, look it up. Again, it's just very dark black and white designs, I guess you could say. And it helps you look at a painting like a abstract design, you know, in bold, dark shapes over light shapes. The way you might look at a black and white abstract or a black and white logo design or a black and white pattern on fabric, you know, anything like that. It's done mostly in painting, though, to get those bold, dark values in, and having value and your subject be a part of the composition. So in this, I'm kind of thinking of a really stout tree on the same kind of an embankment, sliding from upper right to lower left, but light streaming behind it and light streaming in front of it. And I just want to get those dark areas really, really dark, because I want to really play up this light effect. Now, what I want to do actually with these, and there will be 4 that you'll see by the time I'm done, I will actually comment and work through the process of the bottom 2 for patrons. But when I'm done, I will have 4 thumbnails, and I will decide maybe on one of them. Maybe eventually I'll do all of them, who knows. But I want to decide on one of them, show you how I take this value blueprint and turn it into a transparent watercolor painting with mostly transparent color, or maybe just a little bit of gouache. So yeah, a big advantage to doing these with gouache, because you can just adjust as you go. Especially on those edges, as I mentioned, where edges go from light bands of value to dark bands of value. You know, you want to add, it's easy to add the dark and create those little sort of foliage edges. But on the light, you've got to be able to paint that opaquely. And if you're doing a transparent or planning a transparent watercolor painting, you're going to need to plan for those. Probably means masking those edges out, or just using gouache again, which is fine too. But I really want to see how I can plan out the lighting of one of these scenes and then see how far I can take it with transparent watercolor. There's just a glow, a luminosity to transparent watercolor that's hard to match with gouache. I love the look of gouache too. They both look great. Okay, now you're going to see the other 2. And I'll have a video on those bottom 2 for you patrons. And on Patreon, I think probably I'm going to get everyone to vote on which one to turn into a full-size painting, or a bigger painting at least. Just pulling off my tape. This was a really, really fun process. At the bottom too, if you'll notice, the light values sort of recede further into the background. But I did more of a pre-toning with transparent watercolor. Take a look at the difference in the luminosity. where I did actually use transparent watercolor versus the light areas in the top two. There's just a better glow, a better luminosity. So when you can plan for that transparent light colored glow, it really benefits you. So I've got 4 nice blueprints here, and I probably got to do more than one of these into a painting. But I hope a part 2 of this is coming in the next video, or a future video where I show you basically how I take this and turn it into a full painting. Thanks everybody. Appreciate you watching. Thank you so much, patrons, for making this happen, and look for those bottom 2 over on Patreon. Bye-bye.